saying some stuff. Brill. Well, thank you very much for all being here. It's lovely to see lots of faces on the screen, though obviously a little bit weird. And thank you to Marianne at the Pod Project for inviting us along to do this talk. I'm delighted that we're following on from Lucy's talk last week on rewilding. I hope some of the people who were there last week are also here this week. I was sort of delighted and surprised to see that so many of the things, so many aspects of cultural rewilding that she was touching upon last week sounded so familiar to Erin and me here at the Edible Flower. Communal eating and communal cooking and cooking over fire, and our clay oven made from earth from our fields, and ancient crafts like willow weaving and willow growing, and celebrating the solstice, and generally living by the seasons. It was all sort of stuff that you know, chimed very, very nicely with our life and with the talk last week. I sort of never really thought about that rewilding thread that ran through the things that we love here. But anyway, it was an inspiring and a brilliant hour last week. So hopefully we can do
half as much,
half as well, and that will be brilliant. So we're here this evening to talk about growing salad leaves. Definitely one of the most cost-effective things to grow. Yeah. And one of those ones where what you can grow at home is like 1,000,000 times better than what is generally available in the shops. So definitely a thing high up on the list of things to grow your stuff. The plan for today is for me to chat a bit about growing. So I'm going to talk sort of generally about my approach to growing anything and everything first. And then I'm going to move on to the specifics of growing salad leaves. And then Erin is going to do a little cooking demo in case you run out of things to do with your salad leaves. Yeah. And then after that, there's going to be time for questions at the end, definitely, hopefully.
Definitely time for questions.
So first of all, I should probably introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm Jo, and this is Erin. Together we set up our little business, the Edible Flower, here in Saintfield in rural County Down, back in 2016.
Crazy. After
living in London and having proper jobs, and by that I mean ones with salaries and weekends off, for
paid holiday.
Yeah. For many years. We're both pretty obsessed with food. Erin retrained to be a chef back in 2014, and we now run a sort of supper club, events, workshop, cooking classes, growing classes, sort of catering company sort of thing, called the Edible Flower.
Yeah.
And I'm in charge of growing produce for the business, and Erin is
in charge of cooking.
Well, I was going to say in charge of making it delicious.
Oh, making it delicious. Yeah. I'm in charge of cooking it, making it delicious, hopefully.
So we're in our fourth season of growing here at the Edible Flower. We've got a 7-acre small holding here, most of which is pretty much a gradually rewilding bare field at the moment. But we have grand plans for the next 6 decades or so. Is that ambitious in terms of life expectancy?
That is ambitious in terms of life expectancy, unfortunately.
Live like you'll die tomorrow, farm like you'll live forever.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing. But anyway, the last few months have definitely given me more time than ever to focus on the growing. And given that all the catering jobs and events that we had planned over the last few months have been cancelled, we've actually just started selling our produce for the first time. So we're selling bags of seasonal salad leaves, which, you know, ties in very nicely with all of this chat. So the more I grow stuff, the more I grow food, the more I realize that sometimes growing can be so simple and so effortless. So when it works, it feels like you barely do anything, and the seed and the soil and the sun and the rain do all the hard work for you, and you end up with something that is lush and beautiful and healthy and pest-free and delicious. And you're just like, wow, this is just the most amazing thing. But as you grow more and as more things go wrong, it can all seem very, very complicated. You can get bogged down in the specifics of what a particular plant needs, what a particular variety of that plant needs, about your soil pH and about mineral deficiencies and about timings and pests and disease and all that stuff. Oh, thank you. Someone's just put in the comments, or maybe they put it in half an hour ago. I don't know, but the salad leaves are really beautiful. Thank you. I'm sorry they're hard to come by. I've been singing to the lettuces to make them grow faster, but it doesn't work so much. But anyway, so rather than talking lots about the specifics of how to grow salad leaves, initially what I wanted to do was talk through some general approaches about how to grow anything. So hopefully, you can focus on that and not worry too much about the plants. It sounds weird, but if you just focus on the other stuff and just accept that the plants are a kind of happy byproduct of your careful husbandry of the soil, then then everything is good. So if you're kind of constantly working to improve your soil, improve its weed freeness, if that is a word, improve your soil structure, improve your soil, general health of your soil, then whatever happens, that the next year, the growing of the plants is going to be that bit easier. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen now and put on a little PowerPoint presentation.
Yay.
Hooray.
Can everyone see that?
We won't know if they can see that.
Well, I guess they can put it in their comments.
We could get lots of shaking.
Okay, well, if people can't put it, if they can't see it, then comment and let us know.
Sure. So,
okay.
Erin's fiddling with stuff.
Sorry.
I don't know what's going on. First slide. We grow organically, which is maybe not that surprising. We're not currently certified as organic growers, but sort of the principles of organic growing are at the heart of what we do. And I thought I'd talk about some of those principles. So the first one, and by far in my head the most important one, is look after the soil. So I would happily do a 6-hour presentation about soil, but that's not allowed. So I'm going to talk briefly about soil. But basically, if you feed the soil, and when I say feed the soil, I really mean feed the organisms that live in the soil, rather than feeding the plants, then that, I guess, is the kind of very heart of organic growing. So you use organic material to feed the soil organisms, and in the case of us, that organic material is in the form of compost or rotted down horse manure from our neighbours. But basically, the whole thing about the soil is kind of recognising and respecting that there is an ecosystem of life within that soil. And one of the principles of organic gardening, and in particular no-dig gardening, is minimising disturbance to that ecosystem so it can exist in a kind of naturally balanced and totally awesome way. So principle number 1, grow plants well. Sounds so simple. But basically what I mean is choosing the right plants for your conditions, or providing the right conditions for those plants, getting the timing right, and I guess as a kind of side shoot of that, producing healthy young plants, so healthy seedlings, and protecting plants when they're young and vulnerable. So if you do that, then best chance of doing it well. And then number 3, control pests and disease naturally. So we're not getting out the old pesticide sprays here. The main thing is kind of seeking this natural balance, so of predators of your pests, and so you have to accept that there will be some loss to your pests, so your slugs and your flea beetles and whatever, but you encourage the things that like eating those things to come along, one, by not spraying to kill them all, but also by providing habitat nearby, mixing up your plants so you don't have monocultures, having wild areas, having a nice pond, but also using a bit of wit and cunning to defeat those pests. So maybe barriers of some sort. Bless you, Erin.
Thank you.
Or using cunning timings to avoid, peaks in the issues with pests. I thought I should mention a few people that have. I was going to say taught me all I know, but lots and lots and lots of people have taught me everything I know. But some sort of initial inspiration from Elliot Coleman over in the US, brilliant, and then sort of the next generation of growers over there. So Jean-Martin Fortier up in Canada, both very much sort of trying to describe how to grow great organic vegetables with minimal effort and kind of making it commercially viable on a relatively small scale. As time has, and I guess I have read an awful lot about what these two guys were saying before I started growing, and then now as I've grown more, certainly reading more about what Charles Dowding is doing. So he is based in Somerset, and he sort of single-handedly popularized and perhaps coined the phrase no-dig gardening. Elliot and Jean-Martin on the previous slide were kind of doing it, but Charles has given it a name. And I also wanted to mention Klaus here on the right. So Klaus Steckenberger is based in Ireland, and his books and him, like, if he's your friend, he's good for varieties and timings for the Irish climate. But back to no dig, I wanted to talk a bit more about what no dig actually was. Yeah. So first of all, you don't dig. So to be honest, I was pretty surprised when I sort of discovered how strong the culture of digging was in vegetable growing. So after reading Elliot and Jean-Martin's books, it seemed a little bit bizarre that someone would start like furiously digging over their vegetable patch. And in case you're not familiar with the process, which I definitely wasn't, you're basically doing a huge amount of effort, so digging and inverting the soil and incorporating organic matter. So organic matter, that's good, but digging, less good. Also incredibly hard work. I was going to do a bit of a comparison, so I started digging one corner of my vegetable bed, and I got about a meter in, and I just gave up because it was too much like hard work. So yes. And just to mention, on a bigger scale, digging, so the process of getting your spade in or your fork in and turning over the soil, that's kind of equivalent to ploughing or rotavating or tilling, which is obviously a thing that happens in a large way in industrial agriculture, and I guess no-till farming is the kind of name for the no-dig
industrial style,
bigger equivalent, and it's gaining traction in the US, and I'm gradually making friends with farmers over in Northern Ireland and trying to convince them to throw away their tractors. But
it's never going to happen in Northern Ireland.
Well,
a farmer is not going to throw away his tractor.
Well, maybe they'll give it to me. I don't know. Anyway, so you don't dig in no-dig gardening, and that's an advantage because you get rid of this incredibly hard work of digging over your soil each year. But rather than your soil and your produce being just as good as the digging approach, basically something magical happens when you stop disturbing the soil, when you stop disturbing the ecosystem of little life and interesting things that are happening, and also the kind of delicate physical structure that exists just below the soil surface. So instead of digging, you mulch, which is not which can be a noun, but it's also a verb. And I was convinced by your convincing. Yes, I'd never thought of that.
No, I had not.
I'd never thought of that, Jo. Anyway, mulching is basically just layering on some compost onto the top of your vegetable beds. So like an inch or maybe 2 inches of compost or well-rotted manure that goes over the surface of your bed. And generally you do this in the winter time when maybe your vegetable bed is bare, or maybe it's got some crazy kale sticking out, and you just mulch underneath the kale. But basically this is the food for your soil organisms, and you just put it on top. It's a lot of wheelbarrows of compost, but it's way less work than digging it in, and it's the soil organisms' job to then incorporate that food into the soil over time as they need it. And that's it, sort of. Basically, by feeding the soil from above, you have the best chance of success. And it's also, in my opinion, the easiest way to do it. So that's sort of it.
There's always a twist.
Well, not really, but I thought I would try and explain why that was. I thought I'd try and convince everyone why that might be your best chance of success. And then obviously, seamlessly, we move into ecological succession. So I'm not an ecologist, but I believe this is basically what happens if you take a bit of bare land, a bit of bare soil in the temperate climate in which I was going to say we all live, but
maybe Florida is not the temperate
it's
climate.
maybe a little bit tropical.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically, where we are here, if you took a bare bit of ground, this is what would happen over time. So initially, and very quickly, within days, and certainly within weeks, you would have. So I'm sort of pointing at the screen in a totally pointless way. So I'm going to stop doing that. But over on the left, we have annuals, which look actually like quite nice little flowers. But basically, they represent very fast-growing weeds that are the weeds, the seeds of these weeds, the weed seeds. That's a term. It's not like just me making it up. The weed seeds live in the soil. Like any soil you find has like 1 billion weed seeds in it. So if you expose soil to the light, then within days, all these weeds suddenly go, hooray, it's our time. So initially you get these annual weeds, or maybe very pretty flowers, if that happens to be the case. Like so much of what we eat is basically, has been developed from annual weeds. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Over time, I'm pointing again. No one can see that except Erin's mum, Lynn, who's very much enjoying the pointing. So sorry, annual weeds followed by perennials, so things that live for longer than a year, and grasses. Lots of the grain that we eat, which is a big part of our diet, is basically a variation on the grasses. And then over time, you get some shrubs, they kind of look like shrubs, don't they? So I apologise for my PowerPoint art here, done with no mouse. I'd like to say all mousepad action on these graphics. Anyway, then you get softwood, so fast-growing trees. So in this case, a beautiful pine tree, and then eventually, after several decades, you'd basically get a hardwood forest. So that's the final result of this this ecological succession thing. This piece of land that you've just ignored and not messed with is a hardwood forest. But in many ways, or at least in one way, that's not the final result. What if you had a densely packed hardwood forest? Occasionally, a tree would die, or it would fall over and die, and you'd basically get this whole little procession happening again on a small scale. So the tree would fall over, you'd have a clearing with loads of light, some exposed soil, and this process would happen again, which is good news for those annual weeds. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So that's good. So there is a reason why I'm saying all this, I promise. So this is kind of a similar slide, but tweaked. Basically, the theory is that the further you move away from that kind of final naturally balanced end result. The further that, as humans, we force the land to sit in, further down that scale over to the left, the more effort it takes. So the more human effort, or the more fossil fuel effort, or the more pesticides or fertilizers or whatever is required. So if we work against nature, it's hard. And I guess kind of the food system that we work in at the moment, that hardness, that trickiness is shown in the fact that, you know, we do, well, in America, the latest statistic I saw was for every 1 calorie of food that is produced in America, it takes 10 calories of fossil fuel, which is like mad, because plants, i.e. the things that we eat, are like the primary producers in our ecosystem. Like they're just like magic little solar panels that grow on stems. Like they are taking this energy from the sun and turning it into carbohydrate, which like feeds everyone. And yet, I'm getting off the point. Erin, that was the point where you should say,
get back going. What's the slide about?
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so as I was saying, the theory is the further we are away from that kind of naturally balanced forested thing, the more effort it takes. So if we look here on this slide, we've got sort of different food systems sort of drawn in the context of that kind of ecological succession. So on the left, we have arable farming, or sort of annual cultivation of grains or vegetables, and that's kind of equivalent to our kind of annual weeds. And we have pasture. I tried to draw a cow in PowerPoint, but it looked more like a sheep, so I shrunk it down and flipped it. So this is some sheep grazing. Okay. And then we've got orchards, you know, which is getting a bit closer to a forest. We've got this thing called forest gardening, and then we've got foraging in the wild. So basically our hardwood forest, but you know, this is a system of food production, so we're going in there and eating some nuts and roots and all that kind of stuff. And basically we're saying, as we move towards the right here, so towards that kind of foraging in the wild, like, you know, it links back to Lucy's talk last week, all of this stuff. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? So we need less energy. As we move to the right, the system is more resilient to changes in the environment, which is like climate change. That is quite a big change in the environment that we ought to be kind of worried about. There's higher diversity, there's more interconnectedness, and kind of fundamentally lower carbon emissions. So I should probably say we're in the process, this very slow process of creating a forest garden here at the Edible Flower. I hope to do a pod project talk in 2047 on how it's going. But basically it's a low energy system, like super low energy in terms of inputs, a low energy system for growing food, kind of one step away from the kind of natural woodland setting. So it's like a forest with a few extra clearings where you've carefully planned everything and incorporated a huge mix of entirely useful and almost all edible plants. So super exciting, but you know, decades of work. Yeah, decades of worrying that you put the tree in the wrong place. Yeah. But where is no dig on this slide? I hear you shout, or not. But so basically, again, I'm pointing, but I shouldn't point. No dig is can be annual growing of vegetables. So you would think that it sits on the left with the kind of industrial agriculture world. But basically, no dig is a way of cheating this slide, cheating this system. It's basically taking qualities of that natural wild state and trying to recreate them in a kind of vegetable growing context. So I want you to imagine the ground in a mature forest. So it's quite dark because there are lots of trees, and there isn't much growing under the trees because it's pretty shady. And the ground is lovely and squishy, you know, that way that it's all squishy in a forest. And basically that's like years and years of leaves dropping down and decomposing. So if you scrape away the top fairly newly fallen leaves, the ground that you see underneath that that is basically what you're trying to recreate in your no-dig garden.
So like soft and dark.
Soft and dark, but also like
crumbly.
Like you can walk on it. Like it's really quite robust in terms of its structure.
Yeah.
And it's nutrient rich, and it's organism rich, and it's stable, and it's like basically beautiful, beautiful soil covered with a lovely layer of broken down organic matter, which is like compost basically. So compost sitting on soil. So before we will get onto salad leaves eventually, I promise. I thought I should say what is soil, because I keep on using this marvelous word. So soil is some minerals. Again, I'm pointing.
It's fine point. I think okay. It's fine point. I don't know what to say. You keep pointing.
So we've got minerals, so basically small bits of rock. And someone has invented these words sand, silt, and clay to classify these bits of rock into different sizes. So clay is very, very tiny bits of rock. Silt is a little bit bigger, and sand is a bit bigger still. And sand is the thing that you recognize as sand. It often is on beaches. But you know, it's the same thing. And so those words are just defining how big your particles are. And if you have a soil that is fairly balanced in those three things, it is generally called a loam. Like for years, I had no idea what this word meant, but basically it means a nice mix of sand, silt, and clay. That was a total side point. You didn't need to know that. So you have bits of rock, and then you also have this sort of organic matter content, and I've drawn it at about 5%, I think, maybe, and that's a really important bit. So it's living organisms like the classic earthworm, but also much smaller things, bacteria and fungi. It's roots, like living roots, but it's also dead organic matter, so broken down plant material. And once plant material is super broken down, it's often referred to as humus, not hummus. Terrible completely mistake to make.
Completely different.
But basically, this thing, which is supposedly very similar to worm poo. There's a worm castings, I think, is the technical term. But basically, it's like super broken down, and it's stable, and it's dark, and it's sticky, and it helps to stick bits of clay together. It's like the most wonderful thing. Anyway, you didn't really need to know that either. But so you have this like solid things on the left of this pie chart, and then on the right you have these variable things. So in soil you have both water and air, and depending on whether it's been raining lots or whether it's been really dry, the quantities of these things vary. So like super rainy, obviously the soil kind of fills up with water, and then depending on how well draining your soil is, the water drains away and you get some air. And that kind of the thing you're aiming for in terms of your soil is something that is both moisture retentive and well draining, which is like an annoying phrase that anyone can say, but like how is that possible? Well, the way it's possible is organic matter. So by adding organic matter to your soil, you both increase its ability to drain well, and you increase its ability to hold on to moisture. And the reason those things are important is because all plants need water. They need a water supply to draw up through their roots, to not only power photosynthesis, but also to keep their cells turgid and their little
crisp salad leaves.
Yes, crisp salad leaves, but also, you know, to actually hold their leaves up.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Stop them flopping over. But also air in the soil is really important, because all bits of plants respire, and in respiration you need oxygen. So water soil and dry soil is very bad news for your plants. And kind of basically, the more organic matter you have in your soil, the more able it is to hold on to this water, to hold onto that water. And it's also, that organic matter, a great source and a store of nutrients. And just to say, I keep going back about this organic matter thing, but I mean that just means plants and stuff, and compost. I've said, like, what is soil, but what is compost? Compost is just broken down organic matter. So when I say compost, I think of my compost heap. So that's a mixture of grass clippings and weeds from the garden, and
peelings from the kitchen.
Peelings, all that kind of stuff. So it's not some fancy word. It's like literally what is in our compost heap. And that bit is the food that feeds the soil organisms that live in the soil. So we're going to move on to our imaginary forest, and a slice of the soil in that. So at the bottom we have, I'm wondering whether these things are going to come up. You see, I put them coming from the top, but I was going to talk about them from the bottom. I'm going to put more on. That solves that problem. So at the bottom we have bedrock. So this is like the rock beneath all our feet, very high in some places, very low in other places. And then subsoil, so that's soil that's above the bedrock. And both of those things are, well, I say quite boring. I studied engineering at university and spent a lot of time studying the structural ability of subsoil to hold up buildings and bridges and all that kind of stuff. So for the first of many years of my adult life, subsoil was all it was about for me. Yeah. But now the exciting stuff is the topsoil and above. So topsoil basically contains most of the roots of the plants that you are growing. It's teeming with life, it's high in organic matter, and then on top of that topsoil, even higher in organic matter, is this organic layer. And basically that is the thing that is feeding the topsoil and all those things living in the topsoil. And basically this is the state, this natural balanced state that you're trying to recreate in no-dig gardening. The organic layer, in this case, it's leaves maybe fallen from your forest, from the trees in your forest, but in no-dig gardening, it's the compost that you put on top. Basically, that protects the soil from heavy rain, to the physical damage of heavy rain. It keeps any weed seeds like just in the soil, so protected from the light and therefore dormant. It retains moisture, so stops the soil drying out, but it also feeds the soil. So going no-dig means, like Charles Dowling should be paying me like fees for this. I don't know. So going no-dig means less weeding, less watering, and more time, no digging. Yeah. So more time for sitting with a cold beer and just enjoying your beautiful garden. Or like growing more stuff, or like looking after small children, or getting some pigs, or cooking some delicious food, or so in no-dig you could cover your soil with any organic matter, but ideally you want something fairly rich in nutrients if you're growing veg, which are a little bit hungry, and something that's broken down well. So if, for example, you had a whole load of straw, i.e. unbroken down or organic matter, you could put that on your soil and that would eventually feed the soil underneath, but it would be like teeming with slugs. So less of a good thing.
So it needs to be broken down.
Yeah. Like it's okay if it's not so broken down, but you just have to deal with the issues around.
The more broken down, the better.
Basically. Yeah. It's true. Just before I mentioned salad leaves, what time are we on? I'm way behind. Anyway, I thought I should mention how you might create a no-dig bed from scratch or not from scratch. So if you have an existing vegetable bed or a flower bed, then basically just stop digging it. Each winter, put a layer of compost on top, and there you will suddenly, your life will be transformed, and it will be awesome. If you want to convert a bit of lawn into a no-dig bed, then this is a method you can try. So sort of this is a kind of time sequence from left to right. So basically stick a layer of cardboard down over the lawn, and that is excluding well, the cardboard and the compost that goes on top of it. They're basically excluding light from the grass, and I assure you many weeds that live in our grass. And that is going to kill off the grass and below. So you put a layer of compost, layer of cardboard down, and then a good thick layer, maybe 6 inches or so of compost before you tread it down. So like a good thick layer of compost. And we put in a temporary edge here just to hold the compost in place. Though if you have a rogue chicken who likes to kick the compost out of the temporary edging, that's quite annoying, as you can see in picture number 2. But basically, you can do this. I mean, this is quite a big bed, but you can do this all in one day. So you can put the cardboard down, put your edging down, put your compost down, and then be planting seedlings all in one day. Next year, so this is something we did this year. Next year, we'll take away that temporary edging, and we'll basically have an extension to our existing vegetable beds that won't look any different to our vegetable beds, and it won't be all cardy and edgy. It'll just, the compost will have sort of melded with the soil, and it will be awesome. The only thing to say, lots of ways of creating a new bed, it's hard to get away from the slug issue. So because there's grass basically rotting down underneath the cardboard there, slugs are like having a wee party, and they do like to come up, especially if the weather is damp, come up the edges, up from underneath the cardboard, and have a munch on whatever you're eating. But it will get better, I promise you. Over time, it gets much better. Incidentally, that method I've described isn't how we set up our main vegetable beds here at the Edible Flower. These are 2 photos from 2016. So on the left here, a lawn. On the right here, a lawn 3 hours later. We hired a turf cutter and basically lifted strips of turf and kind of flipped them over. And then the next process was to cover the strips of turf where we had, the compost was limited, with some compost, and then cover that in black plastic and leave it for 6 months. And basically that light exclusion using black plastic killed off the weeds, and gradually over the kind of first growing season here, that turf broke down really nicely. And I think the next page, yeah, so this is now 4 years later. So on the left is a picture of our main patch of vegetable growing in February this year, and then on the right is what it looked like a week ago. I think I took that picture just a week ago. So yes, I should probably mention that initially I had grass. I had sort of 6 beds, 3 meters by 9 meters, and I had strips of grass. You can see strips of grass in between these kind of individual vegetable beds. That was when I was super serious about crop rotation. Thought that was, the way to go. I still think it's kind of the way to go, but I'm way less serious about it. I'm also very annoyed by edges. Basically, the whole next slide is about edges. So I may as well click on it and talk about edges. So whatever your edge is, it takes maintenance. So I would recommend minimizing your edges. And that means square is good and big is good. So if you have raised beds, then raised beds are super lovely and great for like not having to bend down so far to tend to your vegetables. But whatever material you use as that edge, it is a place for slugs to hide. So I would recommend no edges if you can get away with it. But even if you have no physical edges, an edge, whatever it is, takes maintenance. So I keep the grass nice and short around the edge. So I lawnmower on its lowest setting when I'm doing the edge of the vegetable bed, and I keep the edge nice and neat. I also have like a spade width or so of bare soil or kind of composty soil around the growing area, and that's basically my slug strip. So slugs love hanging out in the nice damp grass, but even kind of a few inches of effort for them to get out towards those lovely tasty lettuces, it's often too much for them, so they just hang out in the grass and eat decomposing grass, I guess. But yeah, so your edges are your risky areas in terms of slug attack, and they also take maintenance. So reduce edges, and don't have an area where you have lots of skinny thin beds with loads of grass in between. So yes, and if you have the choice, put your slug sensitive plants in the middle of your bed. Finally, onto salad leaves. Erin's not rolling her eyes too much.
No, I'm not rolling my eyes at all.
So basically, the reason I've gone on about soil so much is if you do all of that stuff, care about all of that stuff, this next bit is like dead easy. It really is. So I wanted to talk about basically 3 different types of salad leaf, I think all of which are in this picture. So first of all, I wanted to talk about lettuce, and that for me is kind of the kind of baseline, the kind of main thing. Like if you can master lettuce, then you can have a delicious, beautiful, varied salad every day of the year if your garden's big enough. I also want to talk about mustard leaves and nasturtiums. And yes, they are all in this picture. I can't point at them. It's terrible. It's terrible. Anyway, I'd just like to point out a giant red, sort of top middle, a bronze arrow lettuce, sort of bottom middle, and some nasturtium leaves hiding in there somewhere. So, starting with lettuce, the staple all year round leaf. So I start my lettuce in, and pretty much everything else I grow in a greenhouse. So, and the way I grow lettuces pretty much all the time now is in some sort of seed tray. So if you're doing some on a small scale, you could just use a tiny flower pot, and you could sprinkle, say, like 30 seeds easily in a tiny flower pot, 30 lettuce seeds, and put it on your windowsill or in a conservatory or in a greenhouse or in a cold frame if it wasn't like bitterly cold outside. And then lots of your lettuces will germinate. The theory is lettuce seeds need light to germinate, and I've never quite been brave enough to cover them in loads of soil and see if that's true. But I will do one day, and I'll let you all know. But in theory, at least, lettuce seeds need light to germinate. So you leave this somewhere nice and light. And then once these little seedlings are big enough to handle, I then do this thing called pricking them out. And lots of things you read say wait until you have some true leaves before pricking out. So every seedling has some seed leaves, which are basically it gets a bit complicated, but they have these seed leaves that often look a little bit different in terms of shape and structure to the true leaves of the plant. Basically, the seed leaves are the first things to come out, and then you'll have some true leaves. And most of the lettuces, pretty much all the lettuces you see here, you're seeing the seed leaves. So these are the very first little solar panels that these lettuce plants are putting out to the world. But I prick them out at this stage. Basically, as soon as they're big enough to handle, I use a wee pencil just to ease them out of the soil, and then put them into a module tray that I filled with compost. You don't have to be super careful with them. It's good to hold them by the seed leaf. If you squish a seed leaf, it's not the end of the world. If you squish the stem of a lettuce, that's pretty much the end of that lettuce. If you break the root a bit, it's fine. It'll just be a little bit of root pruning, and it'll bush out further out. Basically, you prick them out and end up with a module tray of little lettuce seedlings. And the reason for starting them outside rather than sowing them directly into the ground, for lettuce and for like almost everything else, there's like a million reasons for doing that. One reason is slugs. So if you sow stuff outside, then it's sadly here, it's very likely that a slug might just come and munch and basically destroy that seedling with one little slug. I was going to say bite, but they don't bite.
Rasp.
They rasp. Yes,
slug rasp.
Good knowledge, Erin. They sort of just scrape the leaf with their little sandpaper tongues until it disintegrates. Horrible. Anyway, we've got off the point, Erin.
Yeah.
Sorry. So slugs is a reason to have like a healthy little seedling that you plant out, because even if you have a little slug attack, it's likely to survive. The other reason is because you can pick the healthiest little seedlings, and you can put them exactly where you want. So you can have beautiful, neat, geometric beds, not like beds with loads of gaps and empty spaces where things haven't germinated. And particularly in Northern Ireland, where it's a bit cooler than some places, it's very useful to have the ability to overlap your growing. So you can start off these seedlings earlier in the year, but also you can be raising the seedlings ready to go sort of in the middle of the year, once something else is just about to finish. So you can basically whip out the lettuce that just finished and put some new lettuces in, or whatever it might be, on the same day, or even, which I'm experimenting lots with this year, interplanting. So, you know, having your grid of lettuces and then putting something in between all of those things, like a few weeks before they transition over. Super useful when
maximizing space.
Yeah, and trying to get two harvests, two things grown in each season for each little bit of land. So starting them off inside is definitely a good thing. So as I say, prick them out once they're big enough to handle. Pick the best ones. Always sow more, and like there are hundreds and hundreds of seedlings here. So you can imagine if you're doing this just to feed a family, you'd need way less. These are just different varieties of lettuce that I just did in one tray because it's easier to water one big tray than lots of little ones. And as I said, we put them in a greenhouse. This is just a picture of a greenhouse. And Aaron, I just
gratuitous shot of me.
Yeah.
Harvesting basil.
Yeah. Anyway, but they basically end up. This is the guttering of the greenhouse. View over the guttering to some recently pricked out that day lettuce seedlings. Yeah, so once they've grown up seedlings, you can then pick the best ones, plant them out. I plant them out about 9 inches between lettuce, and basically I'm growing these lettuces as individual plants. It's about 4 weeks from sowing them in your seed tray to planting them out, and then a few more weeks before you can start harvesting. I've always found lettuce a little bit overwhelming and confusing because there are so many thousands of varieties, and not only varieties, there are the kind of types of lettuce. So I thought I'd do, again, nice PowerPoint graphics here. I thought I'd talk about 3 kind of types of lettuce. So like people just throw around lots of words about lettuce, but hopefully this might help. So these aren't varieties, these are types. So when you pick a variety of lettuce, it might hopefully fall into one of these things. So a crisp head lettuce is basically like your iceberg lettuce. And to be honest, don't bother. Well, no, you can bother if you want to, but I don't bother. And that's basically because of the way that I harvest my lettuce. And that is, I don't grow a lettuce and then harvest it and eat it all in one day. I grow a lettuce and then pick off the outer leaves, which means I can pick the lettuce for like 10 weeks and get loads and loads of leaves.
And just as much leaves as you need when you want them.
Yeah. So this year we're picking really hard, picking all our lettuce every week, and it's working really hard and we're getting loads of lettuce. In normal years, we're doing catering jobs, so I don't need any lettuce. I need like lettuce for 2 people for like 3 weeks, and then suddenly we need lettuce for 100 people. So you know, this,
we don't get as much out of the lettuces.
We don't get as much, but this way of growing lettuce and harvesting the outer leaves is a great way of just harvesting when you need the lettuce. So crisp head or iceberg, I don't bother, but so a cos type lettuce or a romaine type lettuce or butterhead lettuce, they're great. Both, I mean, cos is like classic Caesar salad type lettuce, and cos might be. Oh, Erin's going to bring a leaf over. Cos might be an actual variety as well. I don't know, but lots of the things you'll see, this variety is a cos type lettuce, or a loose cos variety. We've got two cos varieties here. So this is called Maureen. That's the name of variety, and this is called Deronda, and they're different colours, and they're both lovely and quite small leaf. But then that's partly because we're picking them so regularly. And then Butterhead is is an example of a Butterhead. Again, this is a little bit small, but this one is called Marvel of 4 Seasons. But basically, the classic Butterhead, or classic Butterhead, if you hang out in supermarkets, is a round lettuce. So if you buy
not even got a variety name,
a general round lettuce from a supermarket, that is kind of the epitome of a Butterhead. So it's kind of slightly floppier leaves, less crunch and white bit than a cos lettuce, but lovely, like super easy for picking the outer leaves. Sorry, I'm just going to turn over my page to see what I'm actually supposed to be saying. So and some lettuce varieties won't talk about any of these things. It'll just describe them in another way. Some things are referred to as loose leaf lettuce, and that's fine. You know, basically that's saying it doesn't form a tight head, and that means that it's definitely going to be good if you want to go for this harvesting the outer leaves thing, which I thoroughly recommend. So these are some lettuces from this year. So this photo was taken a week or two ago. Basically, once we've been picking these lettuces for 6 weeks, and we'd harvested over 25 kilograms of lettuce from these 200 or so wee plants, and they're still going strong, and they get kind of tall and tree-like, which is rather lovely. And it's like way easier to harvest them now than in week one when you were squidging around with the soil and the slugs. Basically, for lettuce, you can sow from February. So assuming you're sowing inside, so from February to kind of August or September, keep sowing batches of lettuce, and then you can be harvesting all year round. So lettuce is hardy, so it will survive a frost. It's kind of surprisingly hardy, I always think. In the winter months, it won't grow very much. Photosynthesis is fundamentally linked to temperature, so you know it won't be growing when the temperatures are really low, or it will be growing, but it'll just be growing really slowly. So you can't be harvesting loads all the time, but then it will spring into life as the air temperatures start to pick up in the spring. And incidentally, I was doing some calculations. I reckoned we were getting about 15 grams per lettuce per week in kind of Northern Ireland spring, summer sort of temperatures. So if you want a really great lettuce-based salad, plus a few extra things, a few extra salady side bits a week, I reckoned maybe 8 or 9 lettuces in your little patch would be like plenty. I mean, whether that seems like a lot of ground to give up to lettuces or not, I don't know. But anyway, you probably don't need 200, is what I'm saying. So in terms of varieties, this year I'm mainly loving bronze. So it was weirdly, we're starting on the bottom right, bronze arrow. So this kind of oak leaf one, that's kind of Californian heritage one, and I just think it's my favorite lettuce in the world. Yeah. And then top left, why have I written these in such a funny order? We've got Maureen, so that's a bit like a little gem, and we saw one of its leaves earlier. So that's a cos type, it's quite tall, and that's lovely. Deronda, which is the dark red one, bottom left, again another cos type, and then this marvel of the 4 seasons, which if you don't harvest it, it gets massive and has these lovely kind of round-shaped leaves, which are kind of lime green with this kind of bronze metallic kind of spray paint sheen over them. That makes it sound horrible, but they're lovely. So it's good when you're designing a salad to vary the color and the shape of the leaf and the texture, so you know the crenellation. And I guess from lettuce you can get all of that variation in terms of appearance, but not a very dramatic variation in terms of taste. Oh, I forgot my favorite lettuce of all, freckles. This is a poor photo. My freckles haven't germinated well this year, so this is a photo from last year. But freckles is a heritage variety of lettuce that has quite varied amounts of freckles, but it's a lovely thing, and you should check it out. But I was talking about lettuce perhaps lacking in extreme variety of taste, because I thought that was going to lead me beautifully onto the topic of mustard leaves. And when I say mustard leaves, I don't really just mean mustard leaves. I mean mustard leaves and rocket. And I guess I lump mustard leaves and rocket into kind of one group, because I guess one, that they're all brassicas. I like, you know, so it kind of feels neat. But also, I guess I grow them in a very similar way. And I guess if lettuce is your kind of all year round base, if you're a delicious salad, then mustard leaves and rocket are your kind of shoulder season spicy additions.
Peppery, yeah.
But fundamentally, mustard leaves and rocket are kind of programmed as plants a bit differently to lettuce. So lettuce, it's lettuce is renowned for going to seed in the summer, and it does. Like, it will only go to seed in the summer. It won't go to seed in the winter. But you can pretty much guarantee that if you look after it, so if it's not massively stressed, i.e. water stressed or pest stressed or, you know, chicken stressed. Quite a lot of our lettuces get chicken stressed, which isn't good. But, you know, if it's doing okay, you'll be able to harvest it for a certain number of weeks, and then it will go to seed. Whereas mustard leaves and rocket are programmed to go to seed in midsummer. So now, and this is a photo of all our mustard leaves that I was doing in this little test patch. I'm going to seed last week. They are no longer there. Some of them are in our fridge, and some of them are and the rest are on the compost heap. But basically, if you sow mustard leaves or rocket in a kind of mid-spring type way, which is often when lots of people are sowing lots of things, they will just immediately go to seed, and it will be very depressing. And you'll be like, what have I done wrong? But you haven't done anything wrong. That's just what they're programmed to do. And the same applies for dill and coriander and spinach. Just throwing that out there in case, you know, you're worried that your dill, coriander, and spinach are all going to seed as well. But if you sow mustard leaves and mustard leaves and rocket from now on, days are getting shorter. The plants somehow know that, and they'll put their energy into producing leaves and be kind of storing up their energy to survive the winter, and then they'll go to seed next summer. So, like, way better to sow now than it was a few months ago. So I just wanted to show you some mustard leaves from above. This is from last year. So we've got some varieties here. This one is called Mabuna, and it's a good one. And then we've got Mizuna. So one letter different, and they pretty much taste the same. Yeah. And one has a B in it. So you think soft, rounded edges of a B. It must be this Mabuna one. And then Mizuna, spiky Z, must have spiky edges like Mizuna. So two like classic mustard leaves. Then we've got, it's a good red frills. Yeah, it's nice. You don't get much eating off it, but it's like beautiful addition to your salad. And also, because there's not really much leaf, flea beetle damage generally goes fairly unnoticed.
Yes, that's true.
And then we've got giant red, which if you leave it to go becomes giant, but at this stage is super small and delicious. And then we've got golden frills. So kind of the golden cousin, it's not really golden, it's green, of red frills, and there's a bit more eating on it, and it's a lovely one. Basically, so for mustard leaves, I grow them in two different ways. This picture that you can see is kind of the cut and come again method, or CACA, which I see written in books. I'm like, what on earth are they talking about? But it means cut and come again. And that basically, so for this patch of mustard leaves, I sowed a mix of mustard seeds densely in little rows about 2 inches apart. So it was like a little patch of 12 rows of mustard leaves, and they germinate super quickly, they grow really quickly. So after just a few weeks, you can just cut them with scissors and then put them in your salad bowl. And then you can let them recover and you can do it again. But that's kind of pretty much it. Like they kind of struggle to recover this harsh, cutting back. But it's like super fun, and you can get a salad within seconds. And the reason I use this approach generally is when we have a wedding on a particular day, and I know I need beautiful leaves of a small nature for some fancy salad. And I know that if I do this in our greenhouse, it'll be exactly 30 days from sowing to picking, and they'll be amazing. So that's why I use this method for kind of a more, well, it's less seed use intensive, and for various other reasons, it's kind of better. The other method I use is getting a module tray and putting 4 seeds of, say, red frills, or 4 seeds of Mabuna or Mizuna, and producing little clumps of these mustard leaves. And then I plant them out again about 9 inches by 9 inches, either way. And then you can cut them with scissors, but because there's kind of space between the plants, you can control the weeds. And because there's space between plants, the slugs easier to control. And I guess because the plants have more light and more space, you know, you can keep them going. You can cut them with scissors maybe every 2 weeks, but you can keep them going basically for months and months. So I'm starting to sow mustard leaves now, and I'll sow them a few times between now and August, September, and they will see me right through until next spring. And then next summer they'll go to seed, and then Erin will get excited about the little flowers, because they're edible too, and delicious and yellow and spicy and all good. So 2 different ways of growing these, either in multi-sown in modules, or as this cut and come again thing. So yeah, I won't talk about pests. Pests are depressing. People can ask questions about pests. Oh, I forgot that actually, I totally forgot that I was going to mention soil blocks. So the way I actually do this is sowing the mustard seeds in soil blocks, because I wanted to show people soil blocks in case they didn't know what a soil block was. And I've got a jazzy cutout of a soil block maker. And actually I meant to bring it, because I was like, I can bring my soil block maker. But basically a soil block is a way of getting away from using lots of plastic. And you take compost and you mix it with a bit of sand and quite a lot of water, and you use this little kind of machine to smush this mixture into these tube.
They look like little brownies when you
Yes, well, yeah, I mean, people can see on here that it looks quite like brownies. And there's a little dimple in this machine, which means there's a dimple for you to put your seeds in. So one, it's good for not having plastic, but the great thing about soil blocks is this thing called air pruning. So when the root of any plant, any seedling, hits the wall of a module tray, so a plastic module tray, it basically starts wiggling its way round. It depends what shape the module tray is, but if it's round, it'll start going round or whatever. Basically, it keeps on going, looking for somewhere to go. Whereas if it hits the edge of a soil block, it hits air, and a thing called air pruning happens. So the root just stops at the edge of the soil block, and then that root will start forming rootlets on its side, and so you'll get a lovely dense thick root ball, as opposed to a module tray where you get lots of like squiggly very, very long roots. So basically, if you grow things in soil blocks, which I thoroughly recommend, you have seedling, nice and healthy, with all its roots just like primed and ready to go into the ground. They're really lovely, thick, dense root ball, and all these little root edges just waiting. And so you put it into the ground, and then it's off. So yeah. So soil blocks. I totally forgot I was going to mention that. So yes, nasturtiums. How am I doing for time? I'm way over on time. I'm sorry, Erin.
Okay.
She says that, but it's not okay.
No, it's not
fine.
Okay. It's really fine.
So nasturtiums are a brilliant plant. I thought I'd mention them because they're super easy to grow, and they are. You can eat the leaves, throw them in your salad. You can eat the flowers, throw them in your salad. You can eat the seeds, pickle them, or just them. Our chickens love nasturtium seeds.
Yeah.
So I sow these. Basically, mustard and lettuce are hardy, so they will survive frost. Mustard is even hardier than lettuce. Nasturtiums, if it sees a frost, it will just turn to mush. And it's always a dramatic kind of transition in the garden when all the nasturtiums turn to mush. So, you know, it's a summer salad thing. So I sow them in a pot or in a module tray or in a soil block in April. And then once I'm happy that the last frost has happened, I plant that out. And, you know, you can plant them 12 inches apart from each other, or in pots, or like anywhere, and they'll be brilliant. The leaves are lovely and peppery.
Really peppery, yeah.
So I guess when you're not having your mustard leaves, maybe in that summer section when they would have gone to seed, it's a lovely peppery addition to your salad, and super easy. There's a whole load of things that I haven't talked about. So these are just other things that you could grow to put in your salad. And I'm not going to talk about them all, but like it's lovely to grow some like super flavorful herbs to put tiny bits in your salad. Yeah. At the moment we're putting, well, up until now we've been putting little sprigs of dill in all our salad bags. And then we're kind of in this transition over from dill, which is going to seed, because that's what it does at this time of year, over to basil, which will grow in a greenhouse. But like just that little kind of surprise something in your salad is a lovely addition. Sorrel, yum. That's a bit different because that's a perennial. Like it will grow forever. It won't grow forever, but it'll grow from 1 year. I thought I should just put this little table up at the end because I was worried that I wouldn't have mentioned all of these things. But you know, I've said some of this stuff. But yeah, when to sow stuff, when to harvest stuff, is it frost hardy, and some varieties. That's me.
Is that you? Or you're done?
I am, yes.
Great. Will we do the demo?
Yeah.
Well, let's do it.
Can I interrupt just quickly, because there was lots of questions coming up on the chat.
Oh, we've just been totally ignoring the chat.
I kept seeing the question coming up, but I felt like I would be really annoyed if I
No, I wouldn't have been. Okay, should we do questions now, or like?
Well, I don't know if
Are they all like, what on earth are you talking about? Shut up, Joe. Is that what they say?
No. Thank you very much, Joe. That was great, is what it says.
Yeah.
So no, I think because it's relevant to what you're talking about. So what you've been talking about.
I'll stop sharing so I can see the chat.
Okay. So that you can, so they go back quite a long way.
I'm sorry.
That's
sorry.
All right. So I was just looking for them.
Oh. So
Hang on, yeah. So I think the first one is, how deep do you plant the seedlings? Which I think was your lettuce.
So in general, I mean, I know the question wasn't general, but it's useful information. Lots of things you can plant really, really deep. And I found when I first started doing stuff that I planted things too shallow and they'd flap around in the wind and just like die. So lettuce you can't plant that deep, but you can certainly plant it so that it's like up to the start of the seed leaves. So it's just like, there's no stem showing, it's just the leaves above the ground. And with anything in the brassica family, so mustard leaves, but also like kale and radish and whatever, you can plant things really, really quite deep, and that's a good thing. So yes, I don't know whether that answered the question, but quite deep is the answer.
The next one is what do you do about slugs?
So like I curse them too, and I've been feeling so smug up until about a week ago when it started raining. So I mean the simple answer is reduce slug habitat. So reduce hiding place. So keep your soil absolutely weed free. Keep your edges nice and neat. For lettuces or any other plants, remove any bottom leaves that are looking sad or a bit yellowing. Just like take them off, stick them in the compost heap. Anything that is starting the process of dying is like an alarm for slugs to come calling and start eating. So keep the soil, or it's actually a layer of compost on top of the soil, keep that really clear of any plant material. And this no-dig process really helps in terms of reducing slug numbers. Like I've found in the 4 years that we've been here, slugs have just reduced and reduced and reduced, but it is like a long-term plan. Short-term plan, go out with a torch and a knife in the middle of the night. I've done that many a time. Another beer-related short-term plan is use a beer trap. So if you get a tin can or a beer glass, but I'd recommend a tin can, and bury it in the ground up to about an inch or so from the top of it, and put some beer in it, the slugs will go and drink the beer and then they won't be able to come out. So and you only use like an inch of beer, so there's almost a whole bottle for you to enjoy and drown your sorrows at your slug fest. So like there are organic slug pellets available, but it's basically using iron poisoning to kill the slugs. And my worry is that we have a cat and chickens, and if they ate the slugs or the slug pellets, then there's no reason why they wouldn't also get iron poisoning, and that would be a sad
Build a pond so you can have frogs.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of frogs and a lot of hedgehogs like snuffling around. Well, the hedgehogs are snuffling and the frogs are leaping. And actually, even in the super dry weather, I had
if you've got some long grass.
Yeah, but not too long because that will.
No, but it can be quite far away, the long
Yes,
grass, and the frogs will travel more fastly.
I found that the whole eggshell theory doesn't work. So I've done like big, thick paths of eggshells around my most precious seedlings, and then watched slugs like slide across the eggshells. So you can try that, but it doesn't work.
Do you use nematodes at all?
No, I haven't done. And I mean, you could do, but again, like it's only ever going to be a short-term reduction in population. Like I'm always amazed at how like you create a slug-happy environment. So like when we created that no new dig bed on the side, where we have those bits of cardboard just lying on the soil, like there were no slugs anywhere else, and you lifted up the cardboard and there were like a billion slugs. And again, if you like, another method some people use is putting like a plank of wood in your pathway, and then going out and turning the wood over and then just killing all the slugs. But like, yes, you're killing some slugs, so that might make you feel happy if you're into that thing. But you're just actually creating a nice habitat for those slugs to hang out. So short-term killing spree, okay, but like long-term, better just to not have the piece of wood there. So yes, no edges, keep it nice and clean.
Okay. So then the next one is from Steph. It says, do you cover lettuce seeds in a tiny bit of soil to get them to germinate, or would you recommend no soil on top of them at all? I've had no luck getting them to sprout.
So I use a little sprinkling of vermiculite. So that is a kind of expanded volcanic rock product. So perlite is the other expanded volcanic rock product out on the market, but is a bit dusty. Vermiculite is quite nice to handle, and basically that's a light coloured kind of frothy rock thing that you can just sprinkle over, and it doesn't exclude light. Another kind of thing about lettuces, but again it kind of might be a myth, is they don't like extremely high temperatures to germinate. So I have had lettuces not germinate in like 35 degrees in my greenhouse because I just totally forgot that I was not supposed to be having them germinate in there, and a windowsill was much better. But it might just be old seed. Like if you just laid some lettuce seed on some nice damp compost, then I would expect them to germinate within, I don't know, 10 days or something, a week, 10 days. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And then, so where do you get your seeds from?
So I'm a member of the Heritage Seed Library, which is an awesome thing to be a member of. It cost me like £1.30 a month or something. Basically, you're supporting the work they do at collecting and preserving heritage seeds, but you also get to pick 6 little packets of heritage seeds each year, and they send them out, and it's awesome. So that's good for like small numbers of exciting things. But I also get them from the Organic Gardening Catalogue, which is an online shop. I imagine they might exist in person somewhere. So they're good at getting organic seeds. I've been getting some stuff from Mole's Seeds this year, and CN Seeds, and Seedaholics, and Brown Envelope Seeds. Yeah, lots of fun places to look around for. Basically, you'll be overwhelmed by lettuce possibilities.
Sounds fantastic. Haven't seen a weed yet. How do you do it?
You weed a lot.
So I do weed a lot, and so I mean, weeds come in various forms. So perennial weeds, so like grasses and nettles and dandelions and bindweed and all that kind of stuff, that live for a long time, and potentially little bits of root can sprout. Basically, you want to get to the stage where you don't really have any of those, and a great way of doing that is through excluding light. So if you can cover the ground in black plastic for a year, awesome. If you don't want to do that and just cover it in cardboard and compost, and that should kill off the stuff below. But even if like a tiny bit of dandelion shoots up through your cardboard thing, just keep bringing it, like chopping it off and taking it out. Like weeds are not superhuman. Like they will die eventually if you wear them out by just taking the top off. In terms of annual seeds, which are kind of far more of a continuous problem, it's so important to stay on top of those, because certainly some of them will germinate and produce like 2,000 seeds within like 2 weeks. So if you're not like keeping on top of that, then you used to have 2,000 weeds to weed out in 4 weeks' time, not just one little one. So I hoe. So I have an oscillating hoe, which is a lovely tool to weed like the paths and stuff. But mainly it's just hand weeding. So like lots, often, and little. Going along with my little bucket and picking out any weeds that you can see, or even better, the ones that you can't quite see yet. That's the ideal size to weed them out. That was kind of a joke, but sort of not really a joke. But yeah, like if you can get them before they go to seed, you're winning. If they go to seed, they're winning, and that's a terrible.
Well, I was thinking that if I ask you one more question, and then, because there's quite a few more, if we then come back to them at the end of the demo, is that all right?
That's absolutely fine with me. Yes.
Yeah, so if I just do this, can you prevent them, presumably this is them from going, so can you prevent them from going to seed if the top is nipped off?
So lettuces, no. So lettuces kind of fundamentally go through this transition of being immature, so a juvenile lettuce plant, which is delicious and lovely, and then it will go to seed, and all of its leaves will become more kind of translucent and different and bitter, and at that point just like get rid of it. So for the mustard leaves, you can definitely take the seed head out, and that will give you a chance to harvest a few more leaves, and the leaves aren't different once they're adult leaves. They're still just as delicious. So if you want to give yourself another week or two of harvesting, or like you can still keep harvesting the leaves once it goes to seed. You can just be harvesting the flowers as well at the same time. So yes, yes and no is the answer to that question, depending on what you're talking about. And of course, nasturtiums, it doesn't matter. Just they can keep flowering. But yeah, that was long-winded. Cool.
No, that was lovely. Thank you so much. And I really thoroughly enjoyed that. And I feel like I really just need to talk to you about soil. I love talking about soil.
Good. Wow.
So it's like really passionate about that topic. So is Erin ready for her bit?
Yes, I'm going to do my little, oh yeah, you're doing, yeah. You adjust this.
Hi.
Hello.
All now, because like you're really far away, so if I'm not making eye contact, sorry about that.
I'm just going to walk in front of the camera so I can stand.
I also feel like I'm interrupting all the brilliant lettuce chat. So, but we felt like it was really important because we wanted to talk to you about kind of everything that we do, and growing is a huge part of what we do. But once you've grown something, knowing how to make it into something really delicious and beautiful is also like really super important to us. So we just wanted to add on a little bit of kind of chat and a little demo about some of the kind of lovely Vietnamese recipes that we cook with the beautiful salad leaves that Jo grows. We have been to Vietnam a few times on some lovely travels, and we also lived, when we lived in London, we lived in East London, and there's a big Vietnamese population in that kind of area around Dalston and Hackney, so we ate a lot of great Vietnamese food there as well. And the other kind of reason I wanted to like talk a bit about Vietnamese food is that it's super the recipes I'm going to talk about, there's a few kind of things you need to buy from maybe an Asian supermarket or online, but they're actually super adaptable. So they're like really great recipes if you want to make something, if you are a keen grower and you have some nice salad leaves and some vegetables and things that you might pickle. They're like super adaptable recipes that you can kind of use just depending on whatever ingredients you have to hand. And you don't need to be, I'm going to use a few things that you probably don't have in your garden, like prawns and avocado, but you totally don't need those things. You can just make it with, and also just like some bits and pieces in the fridge that you've got, like, you had some roasted vegetables left over, and you want to do something slightly different with them for your next meal. So we're going to make 2 kind of quick dishes today, and actually I'm not really doing, because I knew there wasn't going to be loads of time, because I knew Jo was going to talk more. We're not going to actually do much cooking. It's really just an assembly job. But both the recipes that we're doing, you don't need to put it in. You can put it in a minute, sure, or whenever. Yeah. Both the recipes that we're doing are on our website. So Jo's going to post the links in the chat at some point, and I will also post them on my social media, which if you are on social media, you can follow us on The Edible Flower on Instagram, and The Edible Flower on Facebook, and The Edible Flower NI, Edible Flower NI on Twitter. Though we don't tweet very often, so better on Facebook and Instagram. Anyway, the 2 recipes that we're going to do today is we're going to make these little Vietnamese summer rolls, which you can see here. Can you see them from here? Jo can bring it over. So they're little kind of like rice paper wrappers. This one looks really pretty because I've put some little flowers in it, which are kind of stuffed with salad and various bits and pieces. I'll show you. And we're also going to make a kind of little Vietnamese noodle salad, basically out of the same ingredients as the rice paper wrappers. So kind of two ways to use up lots of nice salad bits. So the first thing that we're going to do, though, I'm going to make something that's called Nuoc Cham, and it's basically the kind of universal Vietnamese dipping sauce and dressing. So if you want to make the food taste kind of like fresh and tasty and have that lovely kind of Vietnamese like lightness, then this is the sauce to make. So I'm gonna, basically it's got 5 ingredients in it. It's got some fish sauce. So if you're vegetarian and you don't eat fish sauce, you can put a bit of soy sauce in. Put a bit less than you would fish sauce, because soy sauce is a bit darker, a bit more punchy in terms of kind of saltiness. But also another thing to do, a nice tip, is if you've also got a bit of pineapple juice, you probably don't want to buy a whole tub of pineapple juice or a whole thing of pineapple juice, but maybe you've got a bit of pineapple, you can squeeze a bit of pineapple juice in with your soy sauce, and that actually gives you kind of slightly kind of fermented flavor that fish sauce has. So I'm going to put 3 tablespoons of fish sauce in here. So we're going to put 3 tablespoons of fish sauce in, and I'm going to do this on the hob because I want it to dissolve quite quickly. If you're making it a bit earlier in the day and you're going to leave it sit for a bit, you can not bother heating it up. Basically, heating it up is just going to dissolve the sugar. So I'm putting 3 tablespoons of fish sauce in and 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then I'm just going to put it on the hob and let it dissolve slightly.
Do you want to stir them?
You can stir it for me, Jo. So it's just the fish sauce and the sugar in there, and then the other ingredients that are going to go in are lime juice. So I've already squeezed this lime juice because we were a bit short of time, so I didn't want to leave it too long. So there's about 90 mils of lime. You can obviously make this in smaller quantities, but I'm going to make quite a kind of, and you can, if you make it, you can keep it in the fridge for like probably 5 days. So you can add it to a few different salads and things over that time. And I'm going to finely slice some garlic. So I'm just going to use a chef's knife rather than that very small knife. So I don't mince the garlic for this because it's quite nice to have the little kind of garlicky bits in it, and they're sort of kind of almost like pickled in the lime juice. So I'm just going to like slice them into little kind of slices, cross-section slices. I'll show you now here. So like little, like almost little shards of garlic. And that's kind of very, like that's how you would usually see it. This sauce is often served like as a dipping sauce in Vietnamese restaurants and things, so you'd often see it with the little shards of garlic floating in it. And I'm also going to use 2 little red bird's eye chilies. I'm just going to slice them into little rounds.
That's all dissolved.
Perfect.
Is that what you need?
That's all I need the heat for, yeah. So a couple of little chilies. So I'm just going to pour, Joe's dissolved the sugar and fish sauce together. I'm just going to pour it into the lime juice. Give it a stir. And then I'm going to add the garlic. So like loads of good stuff in here, like, you know, you're getting a bit of vitamin C, getting like some lovely garlic, some lovely chilies. You can grow your own garlic, you can grow your own chilies. You probably can't grow your own limes unless you have a greenhouse. Though I feel like I saw Lynn Crowther maybe growing lemons sometime on Instagram recently, so maybe she's growing some limes as well.
No response from Lynn.
No response from Lynn. So
she's still smiling in her picture.
So I'm going to mix that together. So that's just like bit of chili, bit of garlic, bit of lime. I'm just going to taste it. Basically, this is kind of sort of fundamental, kind of sort of salty, spicy, sweet, sour, which is what the kind of fundamentals of kind of Southeast Asian cuisine are like really all about. If you can get the balance of those things right, then you're getting something delicious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, pretty good. Maybe a wee bit more fish sauce. Woo. It's quite limey. The limes are quite limey, so I'm just going to add a little tiny bit more fish sauce. But that's pretty good.
Delicious.
And you can obviously add more chili if you like it spicier than that, or less chili if you like it less spicy. So that's basically kind of the fundamental thing that's going to hold all our dishes together. And I'm going to, for the summer rolls, I'm going to put it into a little dipping dish, like this. And you can see it's
we have a close up.
So it looks like that, kind of like a little sort of spicy dipping sauce, kind of beautiful in the little dipping dish. So it's perfect to go alongside the little summer rolls that you're going to make. So to make our summer rolls, I'm just going to put the sugar away, keep a nice clean space so that I'm just going to make these summer rolls on this plate. So I'm just going to put one of these in the water, but I'm going to talk about it because it takes me a minute or two. Yeah, you can show everybody. So these are basically, like, you can't make, I don't think you can make these at home. Maybe you can. We've seen them being made in Vietnam, but I wouldn't attempt trying to make them at home. They're basically made of a mixture of tapioca flour, rice flour, water, and salt, is what it says on the back there. But they're this kind of crazy thing. They're kind of like flappy, and sort of, you're like, how is that ever going to look? It looks like plastic. It does look like plastic, yeah. But they're like a really great thing, and you can buy like these packets. They cost like a couple of quid in the Asian supermarket or online, and like just keep them in your cupboard almost indefinitely. I've kept them for years, and they've never gone off. You can put them in. Don't tell them that. No, but you can put, you find them in the back of a cupboard, like when you're cleaning out a cupboard, you're like, oh goodness. You can put them in a Tupperware. I'm just going to take this one away. You can put them in Tupperware and just keep them. I think they're like a stable product. Yeah, show people how soft it goes. So once you
sort of on its way to squishiness, it goes like much squishier, but now it's very pliable. I'll hand it back now.
Once
we wouldn't handle food this much if we were feeding it.
No, I know. I feel like I'm being very laissez-faire. But once you've so what you can basically get it out. This is a really nice thing to do with like a crowd of people. So you don't even have to make them up. You could just like prep all your ingredients and then like just set them on the table with a big bowl of water and say to everybody, just make your own, and they can like make, put whatever fillings they want in. Kids really like it because they can do, they can make up their own thing. But it's also full of like loads of nice vegetables and stuff, so like really good for you. So once you've done that, once you've taken it out of the packet, you just put it in water, cold water. It doesn't need to go into like hot water or anything like that, just cold water for about 15-20 seconds.
We have a close. No, you made
right, and then we're going to make the rice paper rolls. So I've got lots of nice chopped up vegetables here. So I've got some little carrot batons that I'm going to use. I guess the way I'm making it is kind of probably a classic sort of combination of vegetables. But I've also seen like you could make a kind of satay slaw and then just put that whole satay slaw inside. Nice. You could have some kind of leftover slaw and do that. Or if you had other vegetables. So I put in some carrots and I put in some cucumber, I put in some scallions. I'm going to put in some rice noodles.
Or spring onions, for those of us not living in Northern Ireland.
Yeah,
Or
green onions, maybe in the States.
we don't know. We don't know the translation to.
So I'm also putting in some vermicelli noodles here. So I actually usually use vermicelli rice noodles for these, but when I bought them in the Asian supermarket, I just realized when I was picking them today that they are mung bean noodles, which is another type of vermicelli noodle. So it's made of mung beans and it's like slightly different texture. It's sometimes
which is the same thing as a bean sprout, right?
Yeah, and it's sometimes called glass noodles, these ones. But anyway, if you buy vermicelli rice noodles or vermicelli mung bean noodles, whichever ones you come across, you can get them, I think, quite often now in like Sainsbury's and stuff as well, if you don't go to the Asian supermarket, or yeah, better to buy them in the Asian supermarket. But you could also buy them online. Not everyone goes to the Asian supermarket. You can get these, and they're really cool thing to have in the cupboard, because all you need to do to cook them is pour boiling water over them. So you can just like have them in the cupboard and then pour some boiling water over, leave them for 10 minutes, strain them, and then they're like ready to eat. So you can add them to a salad or stir fry or something once you've kind of cooked them.
Or to a summer roll.
Or to a summer roll. So then we're going to add a few nice lettuce leaves. I'm going to,
which is what it's all about.
Chop up these lovely.
Some Deronda and some Maureen.
So for this type of for these rolls, I would like usually slice the lettuce a little bit, just so that it's not like too chunky when it goes in. So I'm going to put in probably a bit more than I need. And I'm also going to put some herbs in. So I've got some coriander here. So coriander and mint are the kind of classic Vietnamese herbs. You definitely want mint if you're making something kind of Vietnamese with those sort of Vietnamese fresh salad flavors. We've also got some like Korean mint here, which is really nice shape. There's a kind of little sprig of it. So this is the first year we've grown this, isn't it? Did we grow it last year? Second year.
It's a perennial, so I haven't done anything differently. It's just come out.
It's called anise hyssop also, or Korean mint. And it's kind of like something between mint and it sort of has a basil-y aniseedy flavor as well. Yeah. So sort of between mint and basil. It's really nice and kind of Asian food. So we put our little pile of things here, and then we're going to make a nice little kind of pile on top. I'm going to put a little flower on. You don't have to put flowers on. We have lots of edible flowers that we grow. So super nice to use them in this because they look really pretty. And then I'm going to put some prawns on. I've just got some little cooked prawns that I've sliced up. But if you don't eat prawns, you could put some, I've got some avocado, you could put some avocado in, or like roasted pepper. I've done it with mango.
Mango's really slippery though.
Mushrooms, like cooked mushrooms, if you want something that's more local.
Classic is pork and prawn.
Classic is pork and prawn, yeah. So actually, maybe we'll put a bit of avocado in there as well. Might be a bit ambitious here with how much I'm going to get in. Anyway, and then I'm just going to roll up. So basically, Joe's holding it. So I'm just going to.
I keep on looking at what you're doing, not looking at where I'm putting the camera.
So I'm just going to roll it like this. So I'm rolling it kind of halfway, and then as though you're making a spring roll, if you've ever done that, or maybe like a burrito. You kind of roll it halfway, and then once you've rolled it halfway, you're going to fold in the two edges. Like that, and it all just kind of sticks together because the wrapper itself has become quite sticky. Not sticky, but just sort of like tacky, I guess is the word. And then you're just going to roll the rest of the way up. And then you have
it's a beautiful fat one.
A beautiful little summer roll like that. And then you just basically dip that into your dipping sauce and eat it. And like they're super cute to make, and like they won't last that long, like made like this. You know, like you wouldn't want to make them the day before and then serve them, but you know, you can make them in the morning and then have them at lunchtime. If you want to transport them to like a picnic or something, you can put a little bit of grease proof on them, and that'll stop them sticking together. But like they're super lovely to make. So yeah, so you can, so basically the recipe for that is on our website. You can buy them in these small sizes, which is the ones I've been making. They're
Erin, sorry to interrupt you, but the sound has gone a little bit quiet.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's just not bass on or something.
Can you hear me at all, or is it just like?
Yeah, I can hear you. It just suddenly got quieter. It might be just me, but.
Okay. Well, will I keep talking? And if it really drops off again, will you just shout?
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. Maybe I'll just speak up. Maybe it's because I'm just a bit away from the thing.
Some people are saying it's good in
Okay,
terms
so
of sound.
who knows? So, but you can buy the small sizes, which are really nice for those kind of little ones. But you can also buy this bigger size, which is great too. So if you want to make like bigger ones, if you're having them like for dinner or something like that, and you know, both sizes are nice. So that's kind of a really nice thing to do, and you can just put out all your lovely things like we've done here, you know, have everything chopped up, and then people can just make them themselves and then just eat them, and it's a really nice kind of casual way to eat when you're not socially distancing with the people, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully we'll get back to that kind of normality. And then the other thing I just wanted to show you was basically with all those ingredients I just talked about, if you don't want to go to the trouble of getting these little wrappers, but you still want to make something kind of beautiful and fresh, like sort of Vietnamese style food, you can make a kind of lovely Vietnamese noodle salad using basically almost all the same ingredients that we've just used. So I'm just going to plate one up basically. So this is just an assembly job where, grab these scissors. If you've got to portion out noodles and you've got lots of noodles, scissors are a great tool for that. So I'm just going to take some of the lovely noodles and put them in my bowl. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to drizzle over some of this lovely dressing. So you really want that kind of, the noodles don't really have loads of flavour. They're just sort of a kind of,
they're totally tasteless.
Yeah. So you want to make sure you get some of this dressing in here. You can use this dressing for like a green salad as well. So obviously, if you're growing lovely salad leaves, you might just want to make a green salad, but you want to like a slightly spicy green salad. You can mix a bit of this with a bit of like a sort of neutral oil, like sunflower oil or a peanut oil or something like that. If you want to make a dressing that's kind of cling to your salad leaves. But because this is kind of in a bowl with lots of kind of other bits and pieces going in, I'm just gonna not even bother putting any oil on it. I'm just gonna drizzle some of that over the little noodle salad. And then I'm gonna put on some of our lovely salad leaves. So I'm gonna just chop up a few of the lettuce leaves.
And while you're doing that, I'm just gonna show you, this is a lovely variety of nasturtium. Oh, you can't really see it, the light's weird, but it's like a variegated one. It's called Alaska Mix. Anyway, it has lovely variegated leaves. Sorry, that's disappointing. Oh, it's so beautiful in real life. I can't.
You take a photo and post it.
Oh, that's a bit better. That's a bit better. It's lovely, like a little camouflagey nasturtium. Anyway, coming to a salad bag near you soon.
So so I just put a little bit of the kind of like roughly chopped lettuce, and I'm also going to put a few nice beautiful leaves on as well. That we'll put a bit of dressing over the top of it once we've done that, and then you can just basically put kind of a few bits of other bits and pieces on. So I'm going to do a few nice herbs. So I'm going to put some coriander, some mint leaves. You always have to have those in your Vietnamese salad, just kind of arranging them around the bowl. And then I think we'll make this one aubergine. I wanted to do a kind of veggie variation. So I've got prawns here. So this would be delicious if you put, if you then put like a couple of prawns on it, but also super nice with aubergine. So I've just prepared this aubergine in advance because I don't have an oven in here and I didn't want to be like cooking.
We're in our dining room, just to let you know, not our kitchen.
So basically to make this aubergine kind of, I just roast it at 180 for about half an hour, 40 minutes maybe. I just cut it right in half and then I kind of cut like on a diagonal through it with a bit of oil, flavorless oil again, not olive oil because we're doing a kind of Asian dish and a bit of seasoning. I'm going to cut it into a few nice kind of slices. If I was making this not on a demo where I had to do it a bit in advance, I'd probably drizzle the dressing over it while it was warm because then it'll kind of soak in a bit. So I'm just going to put that on there. Yum. And then I'm going to drizzle lots of the dressing over that as well and a bit of the salad leaves. Some nice dressing. So the lovely kind of unctuousness of the aubergine will soak that in. And then I'm just going to add a few. So if you grow radishes, maybe if you're keen growers, you might grow radishes. You might have radishes this time of year. I've pickled these radishes. So the recipe for that is in the Vietnamese noodle salad. But just so you know, I combined some, just remind myself what the amounts were. It was 100 mils of water and 100 mils of rice vinegar together. But if you don't have rice vinegar, you use apple cider vinegar or white wine vinegar, just like a mild vinegar. You probably don't want to use malt vinegar or something like that. It's pretty strong. And then I put in half a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of sugar. And I just stirred that until it was dissolved over a kind of very low heat. And then I chopped the radishes up and put them in yesterday. So they've been pickling for a day. This is like a quick pickle. It won't last indefinitely because it's not very vinegary. So you really want to eat these with anything, just so it's pickling them. So we'll do that. And then kind of the other thing you want when you're making Vietnamese food, well, let's make it beautiful by putting a few nice little flowers on. Maybe put a couple of little borage flowers on. I'm going to put in a couple of little borage flowers. I'm going to put in a couple of slices of cucumber. Bit of extra crunch. Let's put in a couple of slices of cucumber there. And then you need a little bit of extra crunch. You always need lots of Asian foods very much about having like these lovely textures as well. So I'm putting in a couple of roasted nuts. I'm using cashews here, which is not the most sustainable choice. But I had a big bag of cashews to use up, and I do really like cashews. But they're not the best for the environment. But peanuts or sesame seeds, or if you have your own hazelnut forest, roast some hazelnuts with a little bit of spice on them to give them that kind of Asian flavour. That'd be delicious.
Come back in 4 decades.
But anyway, a little bit of crunch, or you could do like crispy shallots would be lovely on there as well if you wanted to like fry a few little shallots. And then I've got these like cool little rice crackers. You can buy them in the Asian supermarket. They're actually kind of dehydrated. They look a bit like this, and then you put them in the microwave for like 30 seconds, and they turn into these crazy crisps. You don't need those, but they add a bit of nice. And then you have a lovely little noodle salad. So basically, I just wanted to kind of show you something like this, because if you make that little universal dipping sauce, you can kind of basically use lots of different things that you've got, in your garden or something that's at the bottom of the fridge, and you can kind of make something that feels quite cohesive, but is also like quite picnic and super like fresh and light and lovely. And when you're making this type of noodle salad, you always make it, and kind of in Vietnam, it would often come with all the different little bits, and then the idea is that you would sort of
smush it all together.
And then eat it. So yeah, so that was kind of a few ideas just for using some of the salad leaves that you maybe grow, and some of the other bits and pieces that you might have in the garden for something that's slightly different to the kind of usual kind of green salad. Not that that's just, you should discount that, because like we eat that the salad that we grow like about 5 times a week just with like oil and balsamic on it, but it's quite nice to have something else as well and a few different options. So I hope that was good, and I'm sure there's still millions of questions about Joe's lettuce leaves.
We've got a thumbs up from Lorna, so it's all good. Will we both sit down again?
As long as you don't eat it in front of us, I don't think I could bear it.
I feel bad. It's like I find it quite hard doing this. This is the second one of these kind of online cooking demos I've done, and I'm really used to like feeding people and then making something and then letting everyone taste, and it's hard to not be able to do that. Sorry.
I love it. Like, you get to eat all the delicious food. So yeah, it's awesome. Sorry, no.
Yeah, my mouth is watering. It looks amazing.
Good.
Looks delicious. Thank you so much. So does anyone have any questions for Erin? Because I can answer. We could start with the maybe.
Questions for Erin.
You don't have to have questions for me.
Well, there's the hang on. Going back to the questions we had before, but if anyone wants to add any other ones in between now and then, go for it. Or you can unmute yourself and ask in person if you like at this point.
Unmute yourself and talk to us.
Yeah, I'll unmute. Tell you what, I'll unmute you all, and then you can say hello and thanks.
I think you're allowed to unmute everyone, are you? At once? Can you do that?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Marion can do anything she wants.
Unmute all. There you go. So everyone.
Other questions.
I just thought we should.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Still there.
Well, Jackie, did you have a question? No.
I think somebody earlier on had mentioned about that's a bit loud. Green fly or caterpillars.
Yeah. So green fly or aphids, as they're otherwise known, are annoying, but I don't do anything about them. I try and provide habitat for ladybirds and hogweed bonking beetles and other things that love eating aphids. And like my lettuces will have a few aphids on them. If you can if you're watering your lettuces with a hose, you can like spray the water onto your lettuces, and that will kind of wash off the aphids and give the ladybirds and other things a bit of a head start. But that's all I do. I'll switch them off if I see them. But yeah, it's really just a matter of accepting that there'll be a few aphids, but hopefully if your plants are healthy and your soil is healthy and your environment is well balanced, then it won't be too much of an issue. What was the other pests that we were talking about? Aphids and
Caterpillar.
Oh, caterpillars. So yes, particularly cabbage white butterfly caterpillars of the two different types are an issue for they love brassicas and they love nasturtiums. So any brassicas that I'm growing on a kind of like kale, or I don't really grow much cabbage, but I grow a lot of kale and kohlrabi, another brassica. I put a sheet of enviromesh. Look at the little baby. Hello. Oh, can you remember when I was that small? Sorry, I'm sorry. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Cabbage white butterflies, they lay their eggs on cabbages and nasturtiums. When I'm growing kale or kohlrabi, I cover it with enviromesh. An alternative to that is to use a kind of toxic bacteria thing called TB is its short name. I can't remember what this is. I can't remember, but you can use that as a spray. You spray the bacteria on, and it infects.
It's like an organic spray.
Yeah, it's an organic biological control. But basically, for my brassicas, I use a net. For mustard leaves, I don't bother. Like, yes, some caterpillars will get on them, but it'll be fine in terms of sort of the balance. For nasturtiums, I don't cover them at all as well.
And we have had a few incidents, haven't we, with nasturtium? We've had incidents where like we had this massive nasturtium plant, and like then we came out the next day and it had basically just been eaten from top to bottom. It was like I'd never seen so many caterpillars. It was just totally mad.
And now we have chickens, so at least we have someone to feed the caterpillars to. So that's good. But yes.
Do you ever use essential oils?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you ever use essential oils?
Essential oils?
Not really. So I've made kind of garlicky soapy spray that I've used for aphids before, but not really thought that it was worth the bother, versus just spraying some aphids with some water. And like, if they get washed off the plant, they do get a bit annoyed by that, so that's good. It's also very interesting to study the life cycle of an aphid. It's like the most weird and wonderful thing, like in terms of, I won't go into it, but it's like, yeah, Google life cycle of an aphid. It's amazing. No, you can. Sorry. So basically anything other than water for aphids, I don't use. I guess anything that you're spraying on your leaves to kill aphids, you just have to make sure that it doesn't, even if it's kind of organic, that it doesn't kill ladybird larvae or anything good as well.
There's some more questions.
I know.
But you should,
Should I do them in order?
No, you should just keep it short and sweet.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We're at 10 o'clock, so you need to be quite to get through them all.
Okay, cool. Erin's going to scroll down to the questions and I'm going to answer them in 10 words or less.
Well, The next one was, how do you wash, spin, dry your greens?
So there's a question above that about harvesting mustard seeds.
Oh, sorry, I missed
No,
that.
that's okay. So yes, I have done that, and it's very good. Like they come true, so you can harvest them and sow them the next year. You wait until the seed pods have formed, and then you can either leave them on the plant and they'll go brown, and then you cut them off and stick them in a box to fully dry out, and then kind of squish them together and then collect all the mustard seeds. And I quite often will do that whole mix of seed pods, and then I'll have a mustard mix for the next year. Or when they're green, you can hang them up. I've actually got some hanging up in the garage at the moment. Hang them up and let them go dry, and then make sure as they go dry they're over something, because the little seed pods pop and all the mustard leaves will fall out. But yes, you can very much collect them very easily, and you can also eat them. Though how delicious the mustard seeds would be, I'm not sure. In terms of washing and spinning and drying my lettuce, basically I harvest big crates of lettuce, and I spray them with a hose over a kind of collection thing, and then I dump them into a big bucket of water, dump the whole crate load into a bucket of water and shush that around, and then I have a next bucket of water, and I take a handful of my quite clean lettuce leaves and put them into the bucket of clean water, zhuzh them around, and then put them into a crate. So they're nice, wet, clean lettuce leaves. And then I use a sieve to scoop out any little bits of soil or aphids or whatever that is in that clean bucket of water. And then you repeat the process of a handful into the clean bucket of water. This is quite like boring, but like this process is so important to me. Anyway, once I've got a full crate of clean but wet lettuce leaves, I just like spin around the garden in a mad way, and all the water pours out. So I am my own salad spinner.
Yeah.
And so that is how I currently do it for the commercial growing that we're doing.
We have a normal, like a personal salad spinner for just picking a lettuce salad for ourselves.
It was Andy asking. I reckon he wanted to know
A commercial.
on a commercial level. Oh, I don't know who said something then. Anyway, I should be quick, shouldn't I? Horse manure, is that the next question? So I collect. I'm not an expert on horse manure, but I'm hopefully becoming one. So I now have my own friendly horse, and that I'm collecting all its manure from. But basically, like I would say at least a year, and I collect quite well. Previously, I've collected quite well rotted down stuff, and then I've kept it for an extra year on site here. Part of the reason for that is around the possibility of it being contaminated with a very annoying herbicide that gets sprayed onto like hay crops to kill off broadleaf weeds, and then that basically gets eaten by the horse, and then it can exist in the manure, and then it gets released again when you put it onto soil. Anyway, so you basically, it's good to grow stuff in the manure that you're going to use before you use it and spread it all over your vegetable beds.
So you can do like some tests.
So yeah, you basically grow stuff in it as a test.
Yeah, and peas and beans are
Yeah,
particularly.
So if you could grow some broad beans in the horse manure mixed with some soil, because the soil organisms kind of activate this terrible hormonal herbicide thing, that is when your plants start getting distorted and terrible, and that's when you know that you've got an infected batch of manure.
So you do need to be careful about it, because like we know a few people who've had their whole vegetable patches just destroyed, and like you can't grow anything in it for years and years afterwards. So you should be careful about your source of manure and just testing it before you just spread it willy-nilly all over your garden.
That makes it sound terrible.
I know, but it would be so terrible if you had a beautiful vegetable patch and then like, you couldn't grow anything in it for 4 years.
Yes, this is true. Yes. Just to say, in terms of the horse manure, like a big pile of horse manure that I'm storing for next year, I actually grow a whole load of courgettes in the top of it, so it's not like totally wasted space. As long as it's not really still hot, as long as it's just kind of calmed down and is just gently maturing, you can still grow stuff in it. So that's kind of useful. I find my manure beds, which are kind of big corrugated tin things, quite useful growing space. Green fly, we've talked about already. Yes, like this year and last year, particularly bad. But I don't really do anything to control it other than try and grow happy plants that don't mind it too much. Am I getting to the end of the question? No, I've just got to get to the end of the old questions. It's brilliant. Oh, and Andy's asked about the spinning again. That's good. How often are you watering your lettuce at seed stage? So, like, I have no careful plan. Just when it looks like it's drying out. So it depends on the size of the container and the conditions. But yeah, just before it keels over and dies. I guess in terms of germinating, I do give it a wee spray, even if it hasn't germinated yet. You know, you don't get through the whole germination process without it drying out. But there's no careful plan, I'm afraid. So at the end of the questions, what do you think about growing? Growing lettuces in window boxes is absolutely a brilliant plan. The only issue is you have to be better at me than remembering to water stuff. So yeah, like if it's maybe a window box that you walk past every day, ideal. We'd love that there's a little dog tail swooshing towards the screen.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, like in terms of like lettuces are great for container growing. The only issue with container growing is you just got to remember to water stuff.
Yeah.
But you can still do kind of no dig approach in containers. If it's quite a big container, like layer up a bit of compost each year, and that will help.
Yeah, we have a big bed out in our courtyard that we grow some bits and pieces in and just put compost on top of every year.
Yeah. I think that might be the end of the questions.
Anyone have any burning questions they want to ask?
I've just skipped over lots and lots of very lovely other comments from lots of other people. Yes. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you to everyone who's already left because they needed to go and do something else.
I can't believe we ran over.
Well,
even though it was a super long, extra long thing.
Yeah, but at least when everyone's at their own house, but they can also go and have a cup of tea and like go and have a pee and stuff like that. So it's not quite so, you know, like you just got to stay in one chair for 2 hours. So that's good.
No, it was really enjoyable. Thank you so much. It was fabulous.
An absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking us, Marianne. It was
it's delightful. But I need to come to your supper club now. I was like, I'm just like and I wasn't hungry before, but now I am.
I made bread during this. I'm like that is good multitasking. I'm liking it a lot, Catherine. So yeah.
Oh no. Well, it's a very nice way to spend an evening, so thank you. I'm sorry I've been so like sneezy with my hay fever, but
I'm sorry.
It's been lovely. No, that's my own fault. I will go and stick my head in the grass. What can you do? It was excellent. And oh yes, I like that comment more about soil as part 2. That's on my list of talks to achieve, is just one about soil.
I studied soil, not even the interesting topsoil bit, like the subsoil bit, for 2 years at university.
Yeah, you did soil part 1 and then soil part 2. Yeah. I was like, what are we doing in these modules? Like Joe would go to like, I don't know how many lectures a week about soil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't remember any of it. Anyway.
Oh, I think I love the soil topics.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, we will be there for any more soil-based talks that you want.
Have you any more to learn on soil?
Yeah, so much to learn. So much. It's like the most unknown thing. Like in terms of the life and the interactions between stuff and how plants actually talk to fungi and all the fun stuff.
Love that bit. I love that bit. It's just fabulous. I'm just honestly definitely talk about that and the protozoa and all the rest of it, all the little life forms, and it's just you're looking at it under microscope. So yeah, it's like buzzing then, isn't it? But anyway, sorry, gone off at a tangent. It was a really good talk, but that's on my list of things to have as part of this lockdown files. Although I'm enjoying this so much, I might just keep going. Just like
I think you
brilliant.
should. It's brilliant. It's a great way to bring people together. Yeah,
it's nice.
Great.
Oh well, has anyone any last burning questions, or should we let you go and eat all of that? Well, somebody's come back. They accidentally left. Come back. Sorry, you've missed it. Yeah. No, you're going to go and enjoy all of that lovely food you've just prepped now.
Yeah, we are going to go and have maybe a late dinner. So yeah.
Very late dinner, but that was lovely. Thank you
Sorry, I
so
can't share
much.
with all of you guys
Yeah, well,
Next
next time.
Next
Come to a
time.
supper club.
we will. Well, I'm definitely, that's on my list of things to do.
Fab.
So, yeah. Well, it will have to have, you'll have to come to the pod project properly once we are allowed back. And,
Yeah, we have to.
Absolutely. Especially if you're building a wind turbine.
yeah, that is, yeah, totally. That is on my, like, I found the people to come and teach the class now. We are going to build a wind turbine.
But
Amazing.
it's not online yet, is it? Because I've been checking just in case. It's
No,
not
no,
out.
because I can't, because of the different restrictions, I can't get them to commit to a date. So, yeah, we're like just waiting to see when we can, whether they will be persuaded that this year is a good time to still do it anyway. Jane, we keep hearing you. Hi, Jane. So anyway, once I know the date for that, I will let you know.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So
And
I shall